Welcome back to our series on how to mill lumber. We already got the joining out of the way on our last video, and if you haven't seen it, go ahead and check that out. Now today what we're going to be doing is planing the lumber. In our last video we went over joining, and as we discussed, it's not necessarily an essential step, but it definitely helps get you a higher quality result. So you can see here we already face jointed this side, and what that does is allow the planer to do a nice parallel edge on the other face. Now if you don't have a joiner, like I said, it's not that essential. You can just go ahead and keep flipping the boards through there. Now some of these we did leave a little rough edges here, and that's fine, so we're just going to rotate the boards a couple times and let it hit both faces. So today we're going to be using the Woodmaster W725. Now, of course, a lot of you aren't going to have something like this just sitting around your garage. So any big box store planer will do fine. You know, you got the 12, 12 and a half, 13 inch, you know, whether you're using straight blades or helical. Now this particular model, we did put a helical head in, but it did come with a straight blade. Most planers you can do the conversion on. They both got their pros and cons, and I'm not really going to go into in this video on what's better for what. But in a future video, we will cover that. Now you're going to want to make sure that you got good dust collection system hooked up. You know, we got our 5 horsepower dust collection system. A shop vac works fine on your big box store planers, like if you got a DeWalt or a Rigid, those work just fine. You just got to change them out a lot more. It also helps to have a partner to help handle those boards to avoid planer snipe. Now what planer snipe is when the board's coming out of the machine and it leaves that roll over here and it just wants to kind of pivot down due to the weight. You can't do it by yourself. You just want to make sure you're running around to the other side and holding that board up just to make sure it's not pivoting on you. Most of the planers that y'all got out there are going to be crank operated, and one of the most common questions we get asked in classes is, well, how far do I turn the handle? Now most machines that I've used, generally about a quarter turn, so if it's right here, 1/4 turn is plenty for it. Some machines, you know, based on the horsepower, you can do a half turn, but that starts getting a little excessive and you start noticing more milling defects from that. So I generally stick to the 1/4 turn cranks on the depth increase.
Okay, this is snipe. This is caused by the front end of the piece sagging down after it comes out of the planer and goes off the end of the bed. And what happens is the back of the piece lifts up a little bit into the blade. So right about here is where it started to lift up, and you can see it dives down. It's not terrible because this piece isn't that long, but it is a little thinner here now than it is here because of that. So while it's on its way out of the planer, if you lift up the front end to keep it flat on the bed, it'll avoid doing that. Now that Jake held it up on its way out, it's not as present as it was before, but after the glue up, we have to run this through the drum sander anyway, so that should take care of that, but you want to minimize it as much as possible.
So that's pretty much it. Pretty simple. You just keep running the board through, flipping it over a few times, get most of it out. Now it does look like we got a little bit of rough sawing left, but that's not that big of a deal because when we straight line these boards in the next video, we're actually only trying to get 4 inches, and it looks like 4 inches is just going to clear that. Anything left after the glue up is going to get sanded out anyways because it'll barely be there. So we're just going to go ahead and stop there. Now you can go ahead and run these boards as a batch. Like if you got 6, 7, 8 boards that all need to be the same thickness, what you can do is just run one board in, follow it up with the next one, and keep going until all boards are through, and then crank it down a 1/4 turn and run your next set. I guess what we decided to do today is just run them one at a time because we knew what we were aiming for, which is just under 1 7/8". Now obviously everybody doesn't have a big expensive planer like this sitting in their home shop. I personally started off on a DeWalt 734, the 12 and a half. I forgot which one that is. But anyways, leave a comment below and tell us what planer you're using in your shop, and let's see what's the most common out there. In our next video, we're going to be running these through the table saw to get our 4-inch wide boards and completing the S4S. For those of you that have been wondering, S4S means surface 4 sides, and it's the process of taking rough sawn lumber like we have today and just making nice clean boards out of it. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and that bell icon for notifications, and we'll see you next time.